Hello and welcome back to another video. If we haven't met already, my name is Maria Malik. I am a public speaking coach and I help people go from being shy, nervous, quiet to becoming great, confident, enigmatic speakers. Today's video is part of a series that I do on my channel where I analyze different speakers, politicians, celebrities. We look at their public speaking skills, their communication skills, and see what we can unpack just by looking at their body language, their tonality, their expressions, all that great stuff. The purpose of these videos are to help us become better speakers so we can take away and look at different speakers, different celebrities, different politicians, see what's working for them, see what's not working for them, and try to apply it when we speak. So today we will be looking at Jordan B Peterson, his teaching style, his communication skills, his presence on stage. If you don't know, Jordan B Peterson is a clinical psychologist at the University of Toronto. I also graduated from the University of Toronto, so this was very interesting for me to do. I unfortunately did not take any classes with him. I did take a psychology class, but it was with a different professor. But if I had known he's so amazing, I would have taken one of his classes earlier. So just right off the bat, I do love him as a speaker. And the reason why I wanted to really take a look at him is because I think that there are so many things that we can learn from him and apply when we speak in front of our audience. The video that we're looking at today is from Jordan B Peterson. He did a talk back in 2019 in front of a fairly large audience. And I feel like this one would be perfect for us just because many of the people that follow me on here are really afraid of speaking up in front of a larger audience. So I thought this would be great because a lot of the things that I'm sure he will do resonates and is great for when you are speaking in front of a larger audience. So let's get started and let me play the video.
Well, thank you all for coming. It's good to see you here. The meaning and reality of individual sovereignty, that's a fundamental question as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, right off the bat, first thing that I loved that he did, so he walked in slowly, and the first thing that he did was thank the audience for being there. Right? It's very genuine the way that he was speaking. He's a very charismatic person and he's a very charismatic speaker. And part of being charismatic means you take in the audience on your journey. You thank them for being there and you really make them feel like they're part of something bigger, which he does so well. The next thing that he did, which I absolutely loved, if you notice, there was a projector behind him and he just looked at it and he was like, oh, the meaning and reality of individual sovereignty. So he looked at it, he acknowledged that, oh my gosh, there's a huge slide right behind me. He read from it. And this is what I love about him. He points out the obvious. If there's something there, he will talk about it. He won't just ignore it and pretend like it's not there. And that in a way is also breaking up patterns. So he's not doing things repetitively and over again. So when he walked in, he looked up and he's like, oh, okay, that's what we're talking about today. He also starts off with a question, which is really interesting as well. So let's see what he does going forward.
Because it's by no means self-evident why the idea of individual sovereignty should be granted the primacy of place that it has been granted. Or you could say it another way. The reasons that proposition have been deemed self-evident.
Okay, let's talk about his tone. So he has a very calm demeanor, a very normal, straight tone. But what I like that he does is he pauses very strategically. So every time he says something important or he is thinking of something, he will pause. And he will show you through his expressions that he's thinking about something. And that really draws you in, that draws an audience in. Another thing that I like is that he does use his hands a lot. So even though we've just started, I already know this about him, but I can tell that he's going to be using his hands a lot here. Right away, you saw this, he's pointing, he's thinking, he's like, right? You can see that he really utilizes his body language to the best of his ability. So let's keep going. Oh, sorry, one more thing. I love that he walks around on stage. So he's not standing in the middle, right under, the projector or the the slides, he's actually moving around. He's taking ownership of the stage. He's capitalizing, and he's not capitalizing, but he is really utilizing the entire stage to the best of his ability. So let's keep going.
Are not obvious. So when I was just backstage, I was looking at the Declaration of Independence, which I do quite regularly, make sure that I've got especially the introductory statements formulated properly. And the introductory statements, I won't quote them precisely, but
so notice how he went from one side of the stage to the other, and he went very slowly. It was a very casual walk. It's almost like he's having a casual conversation with his friends, and that's great to do, just because it's easier to communicate that way, not only for the speaker, but it's also easier for the audience to kind of understand you and feel like, hey, we're just friends, we're just talking about something important, right? It isn't like oh, this is a speaker, I have to sit there quietly and listen to him. So I love that he does that. It's that nice brisk walk, very slow, not brisk, but very slow walk from one end to the other. So at no time is he blocking off any of his audience. He's talking to everybody from one end to the other, which is great.
They lay out a series of propositions. And the first is that we hold these truths to be self-evident. That people are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. That they're equal. And that government is to govern by the consent of individuals.
So what I love that he does here is that every time he's speaking, he makes more emphasis on the words through his hands. So he'll say the government, or this, or that. Like, he will emphasize his points with his hands, which is great to do. I think I do that a lot too, just naturally, but I love that he does that. It really emphasizes your point just a little bit more. So I'm going to skip over a little bit towards the middle and see what we can unpack there.
Example of that is eBay. Because eBay was stranger transactions.
Again, the hands.
People were concerned it would degenerate into an unplayable game. And it turned out that the default trade on eBay was, like, if you have 98% seller rating on eBay, you're actually a crook. You need 99% or above. It's so high, it's unbelievable. So we do know that trust is necessary. We do assume that people shouldn't lie. We are upset if our children don't tell the truth. We feel that that's a moral failure. But we're not very courageous because we won't live the full.
So what I'm seeing here is that everything that he's saying and his body language, they're both connected. When he's talking, his body is moving at the same speed. His body language is really emphasizing the points that he's making. And at the same time, something that I've noticed in this interview that I don't notice him do quite often is he's looking down more. So this is more of him thinking and analyzing, and he's speaking out loud almost. It doesn't seem to me that he has like a blueprint that he's following. This is more of, okay, these are the things that I want to talk about. These are the points that I want to hit. So when he's looking down, he's really thinking, and he's really getting that audience thinking with him, because it's not him looking directly at the audience and saying, this is what's going on, you did this, or this is what's happening, and blah, 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 and stuff like that. No, he's really looking down, he's talking. So it's a very different style for him from what I typically see, but I feel like it's working for him because this is a type of talk that he's doing that's meant to get you to open up your mind and think about things. And I feel like the way that he's looking down is really helping his case.
We won't live out the full implications of that. So the third part of Genesis that I'd like to concentrate on very briefly is the part that makes the Declaration of Independence self-evident, and that is that man and woman alike are made in the image of God.
So I like that he does that again with his hands. Man and women alike are made equal in the eyes of God. Right? So he's always using his hands to point out. If he's talking about a lot of things, he'll emphasize those with his hands. His body language is great. This is exactly what you should be doing with your hands and with your body when you're speaking in front of a large audience. And what I've noticed here also is that it looks like his audience is sitting very close to him, and he's at a much higher state. So the audience is not elevated. They're all kind of flat out, it seems like. So he is taking a look at his audience, but he's also still looking down and thinking. But he is still making eye contact with his audience. But again, pay attention to his body language. It's really good.
And that's a very mysterious statement because, well, first of all, it seems on the face of it absurd, partly because it turns God into something approximating a person, because there's an equation there, and it's not obvious what that might mean. It's also not clear what being made in the image of God would mean, given that by that point in the book you don't know much about God, except that you do know that he uses logos.
So you see what he did there? He uses logos, almost like saying, like, what? Logos, right? Again, great hand gestures, body language is completely on point. Let's move on a little bit more and see if we can find some more stuff that he does.
Of responsibility that's of sufficient magnitude and worth so that it balances the fragility that characterizes you. You could make things better. You could reduce suffering in the world. You could act in a meaningful and truthful way. And there would be nothing in that but good, if it was good that you wanted.
Okay, so when it comes to his tone, I love that he's not monotone at all. He stops, he makes emphasis on points, he will raise his voice a little bit when he needs to, when it's something important he's talking about, and then he'll really change up his volume all throughout. This makes it very easy for an audience to pay attention to you just because, again, it's not repetitive, right? Monotone is repetitive. Your body language can be repetitive if you're doing the same thing over and over again. So the thing that's great about him as a speaker is that there's lots of changes. There's no repetition with his voice, with his body language, with his eye contact. There's lots of changes, which I really like, and I feel like that's probably his strongest suit. Absolutely love that about him.
And that's all at the bottom of what constitutes the self-evidence of our equality before God, our inalienable rights.
Okay, let's take a look at how he ends his speech, because I feel like a lot of us do not pay attention to the way that we're ending speeches. Instead, we all pay attention to the way that we start a speech. Okay, how are we gonna hook our audience? How are we gonna do this? How are we gonna do that? But let's take a look at how he kind of ended his speech, because it's equally as important.
It's a burdensome and terrible responsibility, but I also think, given the fundamental catastrophe of life and the fact that you have to deal with that without becoming embittered, that you need a weight and a load of responsibility that's of sufficient magnitude and worth so that it balances the fragility that characterizes you. You could make things better. You could reduce suffering in the world. You could act in a meaningful and truthful.
Okay, what I like that he's doing here, when he's talking to his audience, he's saying you. He's not saying all of you, or, he's talking to you specifically. And this is why I feel like his message resonates so well with people. It's because it's almost like you're being talked to directly.
Away. And there would be nothing in that but good, if it was good that you wanted. And that's all at the bottom of what constitutes the self-evidence of our equality before God, our inalienable rights, and the requirement for the consent of the governed. Thank you very much.
So what I like about the way that he ended things here is that he leaves you with questions, right? Like, this is what you need to do, or if you do this and you do that. He leaves you with an open mind. He leaves you pondering. So he didn't end things on, okay, this is what you gotta do, that's it, done. He asked you those important questions. He made you think. And that's what's so great about him. And then he said, thank you. After a brief pause, after he let you absorb the information, he said, thank you, and then he walked off and he was done. So I feel like his ending was great. If you can leave an audience thinking about something, then you've done your job. That means everything that you've talked about right now, everything that you kind of pointed out, that means your audience will be thinking about it some more. And he did a great job at doing that. He left everything a little bit open-ended. So I'd love to hear from you guys and what you think about what type of speaker Jordan Peterson is. Overall, I feel like he's a great speaker. There are so many things that we can learn from him. And he is very charismatic, and he's charismatic in a very silent way. There's a lot of confidence that he portrays, a lot of just simplicity. That's what I think makes him so different from other speakers. There's no craziness going on, but he does utilize his body really well. His hands, his head, his eyes, his body movement on stage. It's very accurate and it's very perfect for his type of audience, and he really makes his presence felt, especially on stage. So let me know what you guys think about Jordan B Peterson, of what are the things that you like, what are some things that you feel like he can improve on. I didn't really see anything that I felt like, oh, maybe he should have done this or maybe he should have done that. I do think he's already such a great speaker, and which is why I really wanted to hone in on him and focus on how he gives presentations. But yeah, absolutely love him as a speaker. Do watch a lot of his presentations, his teaching. It's great. It's really good. These are things that we can all use and apply. So I hope you liked this video. I hope you learned something today. And if you have someone that you would like for me to analyze and look at their speaking style, their communication, whether it's a celebrity, a YouTuber, a politician, do let me know in the comment section below, because I love doing these videos. If you are interested in other videos about becoming a better public speaker, that if you're looking for tips and tricks, I have an entire playlist just for that. So do check that out. I will link it somewhere here so that you can go ahead and binge watch those. And I will see you next time. Take care. Bye.